Hello, I'm Dr. Kwemi Oguyomi. Welcome to the Long Arc Conversation. Every extraordinary life has a backstory. Behind every great leader, creator, influencer, people with long lasting impact, is what I call long arc of growth, learning, resilience, failure, and transformation. In these conversations, we go beyond mere success story to uncover the experiences, the ideas that shape leaders, organizations, and societies. Because lasting impact is rarely built in a moment. So I need you to do me a favor. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this video, and share it with your community, with your friends, and everyone that you know. Because you'll find these conversations really helpful. See you. Have you ever read a book? You finished it and you felt very intelligent. And then somebody asks you 3 months later, so what did you learn from the book? And you're like, it was a very good book. You know, this kind of thing. We're asking you, what did you learn? Then you go, "Oh, I learned a lot. Like what? What did you learn?" You need to read it yourself. You need to find out. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or maybe you're a student watching this, you studied for 6 hours, you did night class, you highlighted almost the entire textbook, you read the same chapter 4 times. You now walked into the exam, you feel like, yeah, I'm prepared. Then you saw the first question, and suddenly everything looked familiar, but nothing was coming out. And that is one of the strangest things about learning. Something can feel familiar without actually being available to you. Like I've seen this somewhere, but it's not available to you. You can look at information and say, yes, 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 I know this. Then I close the book and say, tell me what you know. Suddenly, wahala everywhere, trouble everywhere. And that difference is where I want us to start with today, because most people have never actually been taught how to learn. In fact, I'm writing a book about how to learn. We were taught subjects, we were taught mathematics, we were taught English, we were taught chemistry, we were taught geography, we were taught history, we were taught psychology. But very people sat us down and said, you see, this is how your memory works. This is why you forget things. This is what you should do when you want something to stay in your mind. And if you understand this early enough, it changes everything. It changes everything. You see, school now becomes different to you. Reading becomes different to you. Professional development becomes different to you. Even how you listen to a sermon, how you listen to a lecture, or how you listen to a podcast becomes very different, because there is a big difference between being exposed to information and learning information. Do you see that now? And let me say this to you, that one of the first mistakes we make is assuming that the memory works like a camera, as though everything you see enters somewhere in your brain and gets stored exactly as it happened. Guys, it doesn't work quite like that, though. It doesn't work quite like that. Your mind is constantly deciding what deserves attention, what connects with something you already know. Your brain is deciding what seems important. It's deciding what should we revisit, what should we use, and what can be allowed to disappear. Which means that the first part of remembering is actually not memory, it is attention. Somebody say attention. You cannot remember something you never properly attended to. And I think this is one of the great challenges of our generation. You're reading and your phone is beside you. Notification keeps popping up. All right. You can check the notification. You can come back, read 2 paragraphs, then check your WhatsApp. You reply WhatsApp, then you get back to the book, then you go to Instagram, then you get back to the book, then you do Snapchat a little bit, you get back to the book. Then after 2 hours, you say, I've been studying for 2 hours. Can't you see? And oh no, you have been sitting beside your book for 2 hours. And those are different activities. See, attention has been fragmented. And every time you jump from one thing to another, there's a cost. Yeah, there is a cost. If you want to learn better, you start here. Now, let me give you important things your full attention requires. I know that it sounds so simple, but simple does not mean unimportant. Put the phone somewhere else. Sometimes you need to close the unnecessary tabs. Give yourself 30 minutes where your brain knows this is what we are doing now. Because you cannot build deep memory from shallow attention. You cannot build deep memory from shallow attention. The next thing is this: the brain remembers meaning better than isolated information. This is why cramming does not really work. Think about your own life. There are phone numbers that you have forgotten. There are names that you have forgotten. There are things that you studied in secondary school that have completely disappeared. But there are conversations from 15 years ago that you can still remember, right? Why? Sometimes because they meant something to you. Sometimes there was an emotion, there was context, there was a story, there was something connected somewhere. So when you're learning, stop asking only, how do I memorize this? You need to ask, how does this make sense? Okay, how does this make sense? So learn to connect new information to something you already understand. If you're learning a concept, find an example. If you're learning a theory, ask where you have seen it in real life. If you're learning history, understand the story surrounding the date. If you're learning psychology, you need to look for the behavior around you. Then it makes it make sense more. If you're learning scripture, don't only memorize the verse, understand the argument, understand the context, understand what comes before it, the pretext, understand what comes after it, the post-text. Because meaning creates hooks. The more places you can connect an idea, the easier it becomes to find that idea again. I hope that makes a lot of sense to you. Now, let me tell you where many people get into trouble. Rereading. You read the page once, you read it again. By the third time, it feels easy. And because it feels easy, you think, yeah, I know it. I know it. I know it. But sometimes, what has increased is familiarity. You know what sentence is coming next because you've seen it there 3 times. So the real test comes when the material disappears. So you close the book. Now explain it. When you do that, that changes everything. Because one of the most powerful things you can do for memory is to retrieve information. Try to bring it back without looking. If you just studied a chapter, close the chapter. Take a blank sheet, all right? Write it down. Write down everything you can remember and ask yourself questions. Uh, you explain the idea, you explain it out loud. Sometimes you use flashcards properly, not by just staring at the answer, but by forcing yourself to produce the answer first. If you're preparing for an exam and you're watching this, good luck. All right. If you're preparing for an exam, you want to practice answering questions. If you're learning to speak, speak. If you're learning to play an instrument, play it. If you're learning to teach, teach. There is a kind of struggle that strengthens learning. There's a kind of struggle that strengthens learning. And this is important because we often assume that when learning feels difficult, something has gone wrong. Sometimes difficulty is exactly what your brain needs. That moment where you're trying to remember. what was that thing again? No, you're racking your brain. Now, don't immediately check the textbook. Don't check the book. Stay there for a little while. All right. Search your memory, search your memory, search your memory. Because every time you practice retrieving something, guess what you're doing? You are practicing the exact thing you will eventually need to do with knowledge, which is to find it when the answer is no longer sitting right in front of you. Does that make sense to you now? Good. Now we need to talk about cramming. Because you see, cramming can deceive you. And the reason it survives is because sometimes cramming works. And let's be fair, you have an exam tomorrow, okay? And you study everything tonight. You write the exam. You may even get an A. Then 3 months later, everything is gone because your goal that night was performance for tomorrow morning. You never trained the information for long term use. And this is why learning over time matters. Study today, come back tomorrow, come back 3 days later, come back next week, you know, force yourself to retrieve it again, give yourself a little time to forget, then come back and straighten it. Now that feels slower, but that is the point right there. That is the point. When you space learning across time, you give memory repeated reasons to keep the information. And let me say this, especially to young people watching and listening to me right now. You don't need 7 hours on Sunday if you can develop the discipline of 45 minutes across several days. Consistency does something intensity cannot always do. Catch that? You're welcome. There's another reason many of us forget. We don't use what we learn. We consume information as entertainment. Podcast, book, YouTube, another podcast, another book, a conference, another conference. Notebook is full, your head is full, but your life is unchanged. At some point, information needs somewhere to go. If you learn something about communication, you've got to practice it. If you learn something about money, you've got to apply it. If you learn something about parenting, change something in your home. If you learn something about leadership, you've got to use it with people to keep it to yourself. If you learn something about relationships, have the conversation because application tells your brain that this is important, this matters. And one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it. You don't need a classroom. Trust me. Call your friend, guy. Hey, I learned something today on the longer conversation. Then you explain it to the person. Try explaining it to a 12-year-old. If you cannot explain an idea simply in a simple way, sometimes you don't understand it as well as you think you do. So you must be able to explain your idea in a very simple manner. Teaching is what exposes that gap. And halfway through your explanation, you suddenly discover, wait, I don't actually know why that happens. I've not gotten that. All right, excellent. Now you know what to go back and learn. No, no, no. I don't know why this is. Now I'll go back and learn it. And please sleep. Don't underestimate sleep. Sleep. Now, students especially hate this part. There's this strange badge of honor saying, I slept for 2 hours. Okay, congratulations. Your brain is also part of your body. Learning does not somehow exist outside your biology. So rest is important, sleep is important, your movement, moving your body matters, stress matters too, nutrition matters, your physical condition affects your cognitive condition. So sometimes the solution to your learning problem is not another productivity app. You need to sleep. You need to get off the chair. You need to go outside. You need recovery. So I'm here to tell you that you need to sleep. Now, there's something deeper here. Learning is not only about techniques. You need to understand yourself as a learner. When are you most alert? What distracts you easily? Do you procrastinate when the task feels too big? Do you see the questions? Do you avoid things you fear and you won't? Do you avoid things you fear you won't understand? Do you stop when learning begins to make you feel incompetent? Because learning can become emotional very, very quickly. Sometimes people say, I've heard people say, I'm not good at mathematics. And what they really mean is, I have had enough bad experiences with mathematics that I now approach it expecting failure. Do you see that now? And once you begin to think, I'm not just a person who can learn this, you stop trying to learn it properly. So be careful what you turn into identity. Okay? Things like I have a bad memory, I'm not a reader, I'm terrible with names, I can't learn languages. You, maybe. But sometimes what you're calling inability is simply the result of how you have been practicing. Honestly, guys, your brain changes through experience. Then your competence changes through practice. So you may not learn everything at the same speed as somebody else, and that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Don't beat yourself too hard. But don't declare yourself incapable too early. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's getting deep here. And this is where this conversation began, it gets, bigger than school, because I believe that one of the greatest skills that anybody can develop is the ability to learn. Think about the world we live in. Technology will change, your industry will change, some jobs will disappear and new ones will emerge. The things you know today may become outdated. Your degree cannot teach you everything you will need for the next 40 years. So, your real advantage is not simply what you know today. Mm-mm. Your real advantage is your ability to keep becoming teachable. Can you encounter something unfamiliar without panicking? Can you become a beginner again? Can you admit, see, I don't know this? Can you admit? Can you learn from somebody younger than you? Can you update your thinking when better evidence appears? Can you? Can you acquire a skill? Can you acquire a new skill at 35, at 45, at 60? That person will remain useful for a very long time. So here is what I want you to do. The next time you learn something important, pay attention, understand it, connect it to something, close the material, then try to retrieve it. Come back to it later, use it, explain it, teach it, then revisit it again. That's learning. Now, notice what I did not say. I did not say I liked everything in yellow. I didn't throw shades at you, but I didn't say that. Highlighting can help you organize material. But please, color is not memory. You can own 7 highlighters and still fail the exam. Yeah, you're welcome. So, I want to leave you with this. We live in the greatest information age that human beings have ever experienced. Almost anything you want to learn is somewhere within your reach. Talk about courses, talk about books, talk about videos, AI, podcasts, experts everywhere, libraries here and there. But the challenge is no longer simply access. That's not an excuse anymore. The challenge is turning access into understanding, turning understanding into memory. turning memory into wisdom and turning wisdom into action. Because ultimately, the point of learning is not to become a warehouse of information, it is to become somebody who can use what they know. So please read, study, ask questions, retrieve, practice, teach, forget, okay? Then come back, learn it again. And over a lifetime, keep building a mind that is capable of learning. Because when you know how to learn, the world becomes a much bigger place. I'll see you on the next episode of the Long Arc Conversations. We're building people and we're shaping futures. Thank you.